and welcome back to Sew Aldo. In today's tutorial, I am going to show you how I made this simple spaghetti strap dress. So if you want to see how, then keep on watching. To save us some time, I already pre-cut all the pieces that I need, and I also have a separate tutorial on how I drape the bodice patterns. I'm just going to have it in the description box below if you want to watch that. I did not add lining to this, but if you want to, feel free to do that. You're simply going to cut out the same bodice panels, but using your lining material. And then I am going to press the seams open, and I am going to clip the curves just along the bust area. For extra details, I decided to add this dainty lace along the neckline. I stitch it on the correct side of the fabric, and then I'm going to fold it in and then top stitch so it can stay in place. I also clip the center fold. I also clip along the curve and top stitch it. I also gave it a good press so it will look professional. For the bottom, I decided to do a half circle skirt. So I fold the fabric in half and I'm going to cut it out just like this. Since there's going to be a V at the center of the waistline, I simply use the bodice pattern as my guide, and then I cut out that V right at the center. At this point, I am just winging it and hope for the best. And here I was hesitating to cut because once I cut it off, it's done. Then I cut one more time because it just doesn't look right. By the way, this fabric that I'm using was a curtain panel that I bought at the thrift store for $3. I marked the center fold so I can easily match it up with the bodice. And then I match the 2 points together and pin on the right side and the left side. Just like this. If you notice, this skirt has extra 2 inches left over. I'm simply going to trim it off. The reason why it is longer, it's because when I cut the skirt earlier, I gave it 2 inches seam allowance just because I made this pattern long time ago and I wasn't sure if it will still fit. Okay, so now I am stitching the skirt and bodice together, and I'm struggling here at the center fold because of the V. So I simply cut the fabric so it can relax a little bit, then secure it, and I started sewing on the other edge. I'm not gonna lie, this is a challenging task for me because I never made a skirt with this type of waistline. Yeah, I had to do this like 3 times. I clipped the seam allowance as you can see here so the fabric can relax a little bit. Add the zipper. So this is how I do it. I mark all the seams and the zipper so I can easily match them up later on. I place the zipper on the right side of the fabric following the 1 inch allowance that I gave to this dress. Since I marked the zipper, I can easily just match it up to the seam. And I will do the same thing to the other side. So what I did on the right side is repeated on the left. So it should be mirror image, and the zipper should open up like a book, if that makes sense. Make sure to test the zipper before you sew it. I'm also using an invisible zipper foot for this. And I'm just going to sew it as close to the bottom as possible. Now it's time for the moment of truth. Then I'm simply going to fold this end right here, fold it in and top stitch. The back seam, simply just match it just like this and just sew as close to the zipper as you can. Also decided to add this dainty lace at the hemline, so I stitch it on the right side of the fabric, then fold it in, press and top stitch. I made two spaghetti straps that is about 1 inch wide. I fold it in twice, then stitch along the edge. Then I place it where it is comfortable for me. Then stitch to secure. To make this dress extra looking professional, I am going to steam it. I don't know about you, but pressing or steaming is actually my least favorite part of sewing, but it is crucial to make our garment looks nice and professional. This process took me less than a minute. I'm so happy about that because I don't have to bring out my ironing board. And this is the completed project. I absolutely love the bodice. I did not expect that it's going to look this good. I'm not quite sure about the skirt because of the folds. All in all, I will rate this dress 8 out of 10. What do you think? Second project is a dress makeover. So I have this vintage dress that I found at a thrift store. First, I am going to deconstruct the dress. I'm just cutting along the seams. I didn't even bother to seam rip it. I'm just going to cut it out. For reference, this dress was size 10. And that will give me plenty of fabric to play with. The skirt is A-line, so it's perfect. I don't need to do anything to it except I'm going to trim the upper part to achieve the desired length that I am going for. I'm using the same bodice patterns that I used for the first dress that I showed you. The only thing that I did was I turned the back patterns one piece instead of two pieces, so I just kind of merged it together. As you can see here, I don't have enough fabric for one of the side front, so what I did was I stitched the sleeves together and then used that to cut out the piece that I needed. Luckily, the pattern or the print is so busy you won't even notice the seam on one of the side front. And here they are. The seam is invisible, you won't even notice it. Decided to add lining to the bodice because the fabric is so thin. Going to join it at the princess seams, and all the things that I'm doing for the shell fabric is going to be repeated for the lining pieces. I grade the curve and I'm also going to press the seams open. I love this trim so much and I decided I am going to add it to the neckline like I did on the first dress. I place the lining on the correct side of the fabric and the lace is in between. I gave it a good press and I'm going to understitch it. So understitching is sewing the lining on to itself. That way it will stay inside of the bodice. Here I'm finding the center fold of the skirt and the bodice. I sew a gather stitch along the skirt and I'm going to gather it to match the waistline of the bodice. Then I'm going to match the right sides and stitch across. I also serge the raw edges so it is nice and clean. And it should look something like this. After that, I made some straps using the leftover fabrics. It is about 20 inches in length and about 2.5 inches in width. I'm simply just going to fold it twice and then stitch along the edge. I added the zipper the same way I did on the first dress that I showed you earlier. Then I closed the back seam. It's time to deal with the lining. I basically just match the right sides of the fabrics. I'm going to fold it in and stitch across. Turn out the fabric and give it a good press. Hand stitch the lining along the waistline all the way around. Here is the reminder of the before and this is the after. I absolutely love how it turned out. I love the neckline. I am obsessed. Oh my goodness. In today's upcycled sewing project, I will be transforming this old shirt into a cute summer dress. So if you want to see how, then keep on watching. For the bodice pattern, I am going to be using these that I draped last year. The original patterns was 4 pieces. I decided to just turn it to 3 pieces instead. Now let's deconstruct the shirt. So I got the shirt like 2 years ago and I don't know why I haven't done anything to it. Maybe because I'm just reserving it for that perfect sewing project and today is the day. And here I am marking the pieces, which side is going up and the zipper, Just because I'm terrible at sewing solid fabrics, I tend to get confused. So this time, I am marking the front sides. For reference, the shirt was size extra large. My intention for this sewing project was zero waste, but actually it was difficult because I did not have enough shirt to create a long dress. So here I'm just going to cut the remaining fabrics to rectangle strips of fabrics, and my idea was piece this together to create a skirt. And I was super excited, and I'm just cutting the remaining fabrics so they're all the same size. Then I realized it's not long enough for me to be able to wear it because I don't wear mini dresses. My first idea was use this striped fabric, but the shade is not quite the same. And I just searched some more fabric in my fabric stash, and I found this lilac fabric that I had been hoarding for a long time. So I had 2 yards of these, and I just basically cut it to rectangular strips of fabric, and then I'm just going to piece it together to create ruffles. I did not measure the length of it just because I was eyeballing it, but I did measure the width. It was 12 inches, including the seam allowance on top and bottom. Those are the lining pieces. I ended up not using the last skirt tier. Now I can move on to assembling the bodice pieces. I match the right sides of the fabrics, and I am going to be doing the same thing to the bodice lining. And since I mark all the outer side of the fabric, it was very easy to match it up. Next, I am going to grade the curve, and then I'm going to press the seams open. I am a little nervous about this V waist right here, but I like this detail, so hopefully I don't mess it up. I am going to sew a gather stitch along the top edge of the first tier, and I'm going to match it to the bodice waistline. Just be sure to find the center of the bodice and the ruffle so you will get an even distribution of the fabric. Once I am satisfied with the gathering, I am going to stitch it across. Now the easy part is done, and the confusing bit is going to be next. I'm working on the lining now, so this is the first tier of the lining, and I attach it to the bodice lining. If you notice, there is no gathering on the lining because I don't want to add extra volume along the waistline. I will close it right here. This is where the zipper is going to end. Then I work on the second tier of the lining. So I match the right sides of the fabric and then stitch at the side seams. Then I am going to grab the ruffle, and I'm just going to gather it to match the width of the second tier. I'm not gonna lie, it took me a while to figure this out, like how am I going to attach the lining for the bottom tier? And yeah, I it was a little mind-bending sewing project. Once I figured it out, I stitched the tier on the lining. How did I do it? I I forgot. Yeah, because this clip is very confusing. Okay, it looks like I placed the second lining piece on top of the ruffle that I was working on earlier. Then I stitched them together, and voila, it reveals this lining so I can attach the bottom ruffle. Then I just gathered the ruffle to match the width of the lining, then stitch across. I have this lace left over from my two previous sewing projects, so I decided to just add this along the sweetheart neckline. At this point, I can easily add the straps that I was going to use for this dress, but I realized I just want to make sure it will fit, so I'm just going to stitch it on later once the dress is completed. I grade the neckline, especially along the curve, then I press it and understitch the lining. This is my first time to add built-in bra to any of the garments that I made, and I actually really like it. I don't know why I was intimidated to do this before, and it's actually really nice. It gave the bust some good shaping. Just hand stitch it right at the princess seams because I don't really know how to install it. Next, I added the zipper. Now, adding the zipper was very tricky for this project. Normally, I don't get intimidated when adding invisible zipper, but with this project I was super nervous just because there are so many layers, but I eventually figured it out. So I just stitched it on the outer fabric. I ended up closing the lining back seam first just because I was so confused. There must be an easy way when attaching this, so next time I'm going to try to make another dress just to try to find a better way because it was very difficult for me and I can't stand it. After I installed the zipper successfully, I was like, yay, now it's time to hem the ruffles. Then I made some straps. I have 4 pieces here. It's about 20 inches long, 1.5 inches wide. I was deciding if I should do a tie straps or double straps. I ended up going for double straps because I am terrible at tying bows. I simply just place the straps where it's comfortable and look at the inside of the dress. It is so neat. I can't believe it. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you like this upcycled sewing projects, and let me know which one is your favorite. For me, it's going to be really difficult because I love all of them. But if I really have to choose, number one is going to be the ruffle dress, then the blue dress, and lastly, the green dress. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe.